All right, Josh is going to lead us in our last session. You guys all know Josh. Let's hear it for him. Josh does so much here at the church, and I'm incredibly grateful for him. And I'm excited for what he's going to do here now, because this, really for us, I'm hoping is going to be some culture setting stuff for us as we move forward in the ministry, the worship ministry, particularly regarding rehearsals and preparation and just working together to try to make our corporate worship service be the best that it can be. And that's not so that we get any accolades for that. I know sometimes excellence is used as an excuse just to spend more money to try to get as professional sounding as possible. That's not our aim here. That's not our heart. I hope you know that. But we do want to do the best we can with what we've got, both in terms of our setup over there and then also the people the Lord has given us. How do we most effectively lead worship together here at the church? So I'm excited about what Josh is going to do. You guys give me your attention, and once he wraps up, like I said, we'll go into some sound check and worship together.
So this part I'm not very comfortable with. Leading songs is super easy, but between them and this part is kind of uncomfortable. So I appreciate what David and Ethan have already talked about today. They set us up for the why it's important, who God is in relation to our worship, which is a really important thing to understand before we ever think about how we're going to do it, our gear, the practical things that I'm going to talk about today. These are some of the things that we're going to talk about. Let me turn this on. Okay, it didn't want to. Thank you, Michael. So today what I want to talk about during our time is how we lead worship. So I'm going to start with just our relationship with God, go into expectations, how all of us together work as a team and as a community, and then how we're going to prepare individually, practice, and then when we actually get to Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, those kinds of things. And I just appreciate all of you guys being here and being willing to be a part of this. It's really cool to see adults and students being a part of it. I really am thankful for that. Let's see if this will work now. No, it's just not going to work for me, Michael. Sorry. So first, I just want to talk about our relationship with God. David and Ethan did such a good job talking about this, and I just want to talk about how that really does impact us as we prepare, as we actually start to lead. It's more important than how good we are, how well we play guitar. It's more important than how well we sing. For me, if that isn't the first priority, then kind of the other stuff is a non-starter. It's not very important, especially in our setting. And really, we lead best when we are in consistent relationship with God, because when we're not, for me, find myself being distracted, not paying attention, or just not connecting as well with the lyrics that we try to do, good lyrics in our songs, but also with the people, not paying attention to what's going on with our congregation and in the lives of each other. And it's hard. I know that not all of us sit in the worship leading position, but just being consistent and having to plan and prepare and let everybody get ready. When the consistent relationship with God isn't there, it gets really hard to feel good about doing that consistently. It makes you feel kind of fake while you're doing it, especially while you're leading worship. So if people feel that way or experiencing that, it's not just you. You know, Scripture tells us we're not the only people going through things, that other people go through things as well. But God always is there for us. And we can work on that, and He is always there. And it also just keeps our worship oriented toward God. It kind of removes the focus off of ourselves, thinking, am I good enough? This guy's better than me. I shouldn't be there. It should be him, or being embarrassed. It really does take the focus off of ourselves and shifts our focus back to where it should be. And then if we go ahead and go to the next one. Thank you. I appreciate it. So David spoke a little bit about excellence as he was kind of wrapping up, and I'm going to as well. And we actually use the same word, and it's going to sound like we're contradicting each other, but we're not at all. we should strive for excellence, but it's not asking each of you guys to be perfect. It's just asking everyone to work hard at what we're doing. Not, I'm about to have a baby for sure, so that's going to limit my time and things like that. So not asking everybody in here to make it their main priority in their life. That's unrealistic and unfair for people to do that. But just that when we are committed and when we are preparing, that we do prepare and get ready and give it the best that we can. The students and I talk about that a good bit, that I'm not asking them to be perfect, especially with the student ministry, because a lot of us are learning how to do it. But I do ask them to prepare and try their best. And that's kind of the same thing that I would expect from everyone. Like I said there, mistakes are okay, but being complacent is not. We hear a lot of things like it's just church, or people don't care, it's just church, that kind of thing. And I don't think that's a good way to look at it. You can go ahead and jump to that next one. There's a book. I'm glad that I'd put a book in there, else I would have been out of place with everybody else. But it's actually from a local pastor that you guys are probably familiar with, Travis Agnew. 5 Worship Team Killers. It's a really small book, so it's easy to read. But there's a passage in there that says, worship leaders should desire to lead with excellence. They should strive to maintain and improve their worship leading capabilities. Every musician, vocalist, and technician should desire to lead with continual improvement. We offer our service in this way, not to draw people's attention to ourselves, but in order to draw attention to God in an excellent manner. So when we're using that word excellence, it's not at all about making ourselves look better, not at all about being the best person in the room, but it's about not being distracting, pointing towards God, doing the best we can with that. And this book, by the way, is super good, especially for worship teams. It covers pride, inconsistency, inability, detachment, division. Those are the 5 worship team killers that Travis wrote about. And actually, every student has a copy already, but I think I have maybe 5 or 6 extra copies. If anybody wants one, just tell me and we'll grab you one. So then we're going to talk about the aspect of us being a team and being in a community. David talked about that. We're doing things together. We're not just up here as individuals doing our own thing. Me loving how my guitar sounds, but not caring at all about how it sounds with the band or with anything else. Being a team and a strong community as the worship group, whatever you want to call ourselves, I think it's built on these things: respect, trust, communication, and collaboration. I'm going to get into those just for a minute. And also a strong team that treats each other well, I really do think it's more honoring to the Lord. And it's just more fun. When everybody gets along and has a good time, it's a lot more fun. I've been a part of groups when we went and led D-Nows or something where there may have been just people just didn't like each other. And it's just not a fun weekend when stuff like that's going on. We want to enjoy it and honor the Lord while we're doing that. We want to honor the Lord first and enjoy it while we're doing it. That's a better way to put it. But as far as talking about respect, I mean, that's, as far as working a team, working with other people, that's step one. We don't want, if somebody's brand new and doesn't know exactly how to do everything, that's fine. But teach them and show them and respect where they're at, and they're going to want to be around you more when you do that. And trust each other. Trust is a huge one, especially the relationship from here with the band to there between these two groups, because we're here, we're not that far away, but when practice is going, when worship is going, that's a huge divide. It's really hard to talk to each other. It's really hard to communicate, maybe if something's off here or something's off there. That's really hard. And being intentional with our respect, with our trust and communication between these two things, super important. That relationship between whoever's up front versus whoever's on the technical team can be really, really helpful. When the relationship is strong, it's really good. It just makes everybody better, and it's easier to do our best. When it's not a good relationship, it's really hard. It's really divisive because it's easy for maybe people up here to start to think, oh, well, they don't know what they're doing, or they're not wanting to help, or they're just trying to do their own thing. Or people in the back think, well, they just keep turning their amp up. They don't care how loud we are, that kind of stuff. So that relationship is really important. So I want us to really, really, really focus on and think about our communication between those two avenues, and really focus on listening to each other, understanding what each other is trying to say. I think as a team, we will be a lot stronger in that way if we work hard on those things. And as always, those are based on communication, trust, and respect. Communicating well is really important. It's funny because sometimes on a Sunday morning or on Wednesday, this mic's not on, okay. Whoever's in the back will be practicing, and I can be playing a song. And in here we have in-ear monitors, but over there we have stage monitors. And I'll need an adjustment on the stage monitor, and I'll just kind of try to get Robert's attention or Jeff's attention and point at somebody and point up or point down. And that's really hard. They don't know if I'm talking about my mic, David's mic, my guitar, David's guitar. They're not sure. So just trying to communicate well. And what we're going to try to do is set up some just practices to help improve, or processes to help improve those things, so that kind of stuff, it'll always happen, but it happens less, so that it happens a little bit less, and it's a little bit more organized as we go. And then being collaborative, being open to listen to each other, hearing feedback from each other. A couple weeks ago when David was out of town, I think, and so I led. Michael did a really cool thing. I was leading a song, and it's in the key of C, and it's way too high, and I just have never changed it, and I just struggled through it. And they said, hey, why don't we just change this key? It's super easy. We can just do it real quick. So thankfully, I listened to them, and it was much better. It's better for me, and it's better for everybody who's singing. So just being open and listening to people as we go. It's really good. That's good teamwork right there for sure. And everyone's just trying to do their best. They're not out here saying, man, Josh can't sing. He really stinks. He shouldn't lead ever. But they're saying, this is just the wrong key. Just change the key. It's not a big deal. And again, those things, if we can really focus on respect, trust, communication, being collaborative, I'm not saying we're not a strong team. Don't hear me say that, please. But I am saying that we will continue to grow stronger, and especially helping with the divide between the stage and the sound booth, tech booth, whatever we call it. And I'm going to mention this here, I think, because I'll probably mention it later. One thing that I think we need to do in here and in the sanctuary is implement what we're going to call a talkback microphone. And that is a microphone for typically the sound guy, but anybody in the back can use it, so that it doesn't go to the speakers. It most of the time just goes to monitors, or in here just to the in-ear system. And so that's because there's how many people? There's 5 or 6 people today that have microphones that are can talk one way. So giving them a tool to be able to talk to us as well, where it's not like we're just bombarding them with information and they don't have a way to, in a reasonable way, to talk back to us. Yelling stinks, yelling back and forth. It sounds like we're angry, but we're not, and we're just trying to get information back and forth. So that'll help us a lot, just communicating back and forth. It's cool if you have in-ears, because they can talk to you during worship if they need to. A lot of people can be distracting and trying to be funny and that kind of stuff, so we don't want to do that. But it is a really good way to communicate with each other. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit just about preparation. And I think I should have put another slide in here, because we're going to talk about it based on each role, because it's not the same for everybody. Depending on what you're doing, you have to prepare in different ways. So if I don't talk about you first, I'll get to you eventually. But the very first thing I want to talk about, this is for everybody. We use Planning Center. Well, it's called Services. Planning Center is like the big umbrella. I think everybody just calls it Planning Center. We use Planning Center to schedule and all schedule, plan songs, put the order of service in there, and it's awesome. But you got to pay attention to it. So David does a really good job putting our order of services in there and the scriptures that we're going to do and sending out requests for the schedule. And the big part is just to pay attention to what's in there, that he and I both put, who's leading what song, when you're scheduled. Respond as soon as you can for the schedule request, because if you don't respond, and we've got a couple students and I know who they are, if you don't respond at all, or you respond super last minute, if you're not going to be there, that doesn't give us any time to kind of prepare for that or plan for that. And if you don't respond at all and don't show up, then we should check. That's on us. But we don't even know if you're going to be there or not. So just pay attention to Playing Center. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. And please respond to the request. There's a really cool feature. I don't know if you're going to talk about it, David, but you can block out dates where you're not available. And that's really helpful while we're planning, because if you have a vacation coming up and I try to schedule you and you've blocked it out, it'll tell me that I can't schedule you. So that's a really, really helpful feature. And I think David has I've started stealing a couple things that David's been doing. Sending out the email every month, I think is when Amy did it, about if you're going to be there or if you're not going to be there, go ahead and block things out. So that's just a really good feature that I want to mention. And then continual improvement, just that we aren't sitting back all the time, that we're learning new things, trying to get better. And like I mentioned, this is, for the exception of maybe David and Ethan, this is none of our full-time jobs. We all have lots of other responsibilities. So please don't hear us saying you have to be the best. By next week, you have to be able to go on tour or else you're out. We're not at all saying that, but we do want to be a group where we are getting better. Not saying not perfect, but that we're getting better. And then just for a minute about music theory, I shouldn't even be talking about this one because I almost know basically nothing. The most I know about theory is that if you take the third note of a chord and move it down a half step, it's a minor chord. I think that's right, if it's not. But what I want to say there is we should at least have a working knowledge to where we can talk musically to each other. Knowing, this probably isn't even theory, but just knowing what each part of a song is called, if we're in the intro or the chorus or the bridge, and we need to repeat something. David says, let's repeat the bridge, and no one knows what the bridge is. We need to just be able to talk to each other, that's all. Let's see, what else did I have? Time signatures, knowing what signature we're in, BPMs about how fast a song should be. These are very basic things. They're not at all saying you should be able to, many of you can, and it's awesome. It's not a skill that I have, that you can sight read or read music. It's not a requirement, I wouldn't say. It's super helpful. I can't do it. But that theory, just a basic working knowledge so we can communicate with each other about the songs, rather than just making like drum noises through our mouth and telling Nate what to play in those sections. He needs help. Yeah, I covered all of my points on that. I do want to talk about one thing about theory that would be a really good thing to understand. Jenna did this when we changed the keys. She really impressed me because I'll brag a little bit. I don't know. You sight read most of the songs we're playing, right? And you were able to transpose actual written music to another key, and you didn't ask for another chart or anything. That was really helpful and awesome because I didn't have to think, but if we change the key, then Jenna won't be able to play it. So working on that is just a really, really, really helpful thing to do. And that's really hard. So that's why I'm kind of pointing that out, because I can't even read music. So if I only had music and then somebody asked me to change the key, I would be like, yeah, I'll just not play on this one. But another way that it's really helpful, and I'm just talking to guitar players on this one, is understanding how to use a capo. Like the song that we're going to play, the second song we're going to play today is in the key of E, but David's playing, I think, uncapoed on that one. You're playing open chords. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to use a capo on that one so that if we're both playing a chord, it's not the exact same sound. It's a little bit different, and it just sits a little bit different in the mix and sounds really good. So just little things like that, especially for guitarists. If we do have to change a key and you know how to use your capo and transpose, and you can look at a chord chart in G but understand what the chords in C would be, it's really, really helpful. That's kind of like a little bit of an advanced idea, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. So let's just talk a little bit more about preparation based on the role. So I did want to include worship leaders in here, not only so that I could talk to myself, David, and Ethan, but that if there's anybody who wants to grow in that and do that more, come and talk to me and David. Every now and then we can't be here, so it would be really awesome to have other people who we can talk to and say, hey, can you fill in for me? But these guys already mentioned this, and this is for everybody, but specifically in relation to the worship leaders, is to focus on prayer and preparation as you're planning songs and just thinking through the service. A lot of times we do have the scripture that we're going to be playing with that's going to be preached on, and that's ideal. That's ideal. Sometimes we don't, and that's okay too. I think what David has done before is plan a set based on what we spoke about last week, or go across a theme where every now and then when I don't know the scripture or what we're going to do, the theme I'll think about is first like maybe a song of adoration, and then maybe a song about who we are. I know we don't sing about who we are without Christ, but that of our sinfulness is a part of that song. And then a song of his redemption, and then probably another song of adoration or something like that. So you can think through a worship set even if you don't know exactly what the scripture is going to be on. And it's really cool too. A lot of times when you do that, because we're singing scripture, it's not we're just picking songs that we like most of the time, that it lines up a lot of times with what we're going to learn about that day. And then planning with enough lead time for everyone to prepare. I like to prepare. I do not like getting the songs we're going to do a day or two before, because even if I wanted to, I probably wouldn't have time to. So it's really important when we're planning, and we try to do this for you guys. I think I've told the students for 5 or 6 years, about as long as I've been here, that I want to get like 2 weeks ahead. I'm typically about a week ahead. But we should be getting out to you guys with enough time to prepare. And I'll say, if for some reason y'all think that we're not, I'll speak for myself, you can talk to David separately. If you think that we're not, come and talk to us, and we'll try to work a better way to do that. Students, adults, go talk to David. And then also, worship leaders also have to practice for the songs and be comfortable with them. We use charts a lot, which is not bad. But when you know the music, it is much easier to relate and connect. And then planning transitions between songs. I know that we've all been a part of something where it's like, okay, song ended, this is super awkward, we just need to get to the next song. But planning the transitions is really important. So those are just some of the things as a worship leader that I think through as we're going. There's so much more. This is just a little bit. Thank you. Vocals and choir. Again, I sing, but I'm not trained at all in any of that. So my first piece of advice is, this is going to be a theme. This is not just for vocals and choir, is listen to the songs, to know them. Also, I'm super glad that our choir is staying with us during the whole worship time. I think it's really cool. So I think most of you guys are sitting over here. That's why I'm looking over here. I think it's really good. I think it's awesome. But listening to them, and I put prepare vocal parts in there. I can't do that. I don't know what the different parts are. So you guys can work on that as you know. And practice vocal parts, just practicing what you think you're going to be singing. Also, talking about planning center and listening to the songs, it's not always the same key. So if you can, just keep an eye on what keys we're in. That recordings are honestly rarely the same key that we lead in. And learn the lyrics if you can. I'm really bad at learning the lyrics. I can learn the song, and then I'm looking back there a lot during worship. But it's good to learn the lyrics too. And knowing the parts of the song. That's the chorus, bridge, verse, so that, again, you just know where we're going if we do something weird or do something different or repeat a part, just so that you also have an idea of where we're going and you're not surprised when the next slide pops up and to see what the words are. Yeah. And then this one is for the band. This is the one, of course, that I have the most experience with. Again, listen to the songs. You don't always want to be that person who's like showing up, listening to the song, and you've never heard it before, and then you're not familiar with what we're about to practice. That keeps us away from having to practice more during the week and just meeting early in the morning. And learn the music as best as possible. I mentioned this one too. I'm going to use a chord chart for the second song because there's a lot of chords and I don't know them by heart. But the first one, it's a relatively older song and it's not a complex song, so I'm able to just play it and not worry about it. But learning the music as best as possible helps you. Again, just being familiar with it. And practicing specific parts and dynamics it's really important as a band to kind of take the next step rather than everybody playing the chord at the same time as hard or as fast as they can. Parts, so I would say, like on electric, I can play chords the whole time. I can play bar chords or just open chords, or there's lead lines in songs and I can play a little bit of those. Typically, it sounds really good. Like today, this is Amazing Grace. We're going to start with that one. When we started practice, Ethan was playing the lead line and I was playing the lead line, but we were listening to each other. So I just, he's going to lead it. I'm not going to play it, and that's cool. But we both knew it, so we were ready to make the song a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more interesting. And the dynamics, I'm just talking about like how loud or how busy or how quiet and mellow you're playing. When the song is hitting a down bridge or a down chorus or something, you don't want to be going as hard as you can, or else it's not going to be a down bridge or a down chorus, and the song is going to stay the same where it is all the time. And then this is the first slide where I'm going to mention spending time with your gear. I guess I could mention that for vocals too, like understanding how to warm up and that kind of thing. But just spend time with your gear. And so I have a pedal board, and I'm into gear more than other people. I just enjoy it. But if I don't understand how it works and I kick a knob while we're playing and I don't know how to fix it, then that's not a very good thing. Or a cable starts buzzing, which isn't uncommon. Being familiar with it and how to fix and troubleshoot goes a really long ways. I feel like I have a note that I've missed that I should have. Oh no, it's coming later. I'll hit it when we get there. And then the next one is for our technical teams. Again, we need to listen to the songs. Because also you don't want to show up and be surprised and not know what we're leading, because you need to be familiar with the songs, because like the lead line that I was mentioning, you want to know when it's going to happen, so maybe you bump that instrument up a little bit during that part to make it a little bit more prevalent, or maybe you pull something down if we're supposed to be mellow, or push the keys up in a certain part, just so that you help make the songs more dynamic, and you can make adjustments as we go. And again, I have on there, spend time with your gear to understand how it works. I've mentioned audio before already, but also Pro Presenter. We're going to talk about both of those things this afternoon. Things happen when we're singing, and either we accidentally skip a chord, skip a verse or skip something. You guys need to try to be able to keep up with this as best as we can, so that it's not a big distraction for everybody. And we need to try not to do those things as well. That's the first step, try not to do those things. But just understanding how it works, so that our services they have a good quality, but they're not distracting, where people don't turn around and look at you and then all of a sudden their focus is broke, that kind of thing. That's our main thing, is just understanding how to use what we have so that we can use it as best as we can and keep people's attention on the Lord. That's part of their responsibility too, but we want to try to do that. And then this is for church members, because I know that not everyone here today is a part of the technical or band team or choir. So Pastor David does an awesome job at sending out your email every week, and he's got a Spotify playlist. Is there an Apple Music playlist? Spotify and YouTube. I don't have Apple Music, so I just wasn't sure. He sends out an email about preparing our hearts for worship. Is that scheduled to come out at like 6:30? Yeah. And it's really good to read through that and just get ready. And then just pray for yourself, pray for the teams, pray for the church, pray for everybody who is going to be there. I find when we're getting ready on a Wednesday or Sunday night that I really enjoy praying for everybody who's going to be there outside of just the band, and that things go well. And then read the scriptures related to the week. This could apply to everybody, but I mentioned these specifically for people who aren't members of the choir, band, or tech team, that it's a really good way to be engaged and prepare as you come in for worship. And then we're going to talk about practice. David, 12:15, is that when we're supposed to jump to the next part? Okay, I'll try to hurry through these parts so we have some time. Practice. Show up early. We're going to start at 8:15 on Sunday mornings. Start at 8:15 on Sunday mornings. But what that means is if we're supposed to start at 8:15, but I showed up at 8:15 with my board, I'm not going to be ready at 8:15. So, judge for yourself about how early you need to be there to either get your stuff ready or just hang out and have a good time. But start showing up early and being ready. Oh, I guess it works now. That's my fault. Showing up early and being ready to start on time is a huge thing that will help everybody. And one reason why that's so important is I tell the students this too, is when we start on time, it always feels like practice goes fine and there's no issues. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I got these people here too early. But then when we don't start on time, things go wrong. And it's like, man, I should have got these people here 30 minutes early. So even if we are starting on time and it feels like we could start later, probably not. It probably is just going exactly how that it should. So I'm going to take a few minutes talking about two things that we're going to try to implement, called a line check and a monitor check. This is heavily helping our audio guys. Line check, basically, and it's funny, we didn't start our practice this way today, and David kind of looked at me and he's like, what do we want to do it? And I was like, kind of, yeah. So it's probably going to feel awkward as we get started, and that's okay. We'll just get used to it. We'll get better at it and get used to it. So line check, Jeff, we're literally just you're going to have your talk back and you're going to be talking to us and we're going to be listening to you. I'm going to start with no noodling. Noodling is making noise with your mouth or with an instrument, and it's super distracting, and it's really hard to be focused. It's really hard not to be distracting when we're trying to do line check, trying to talk through, trying to share monitored adjustments that we need. That's why we end up getting muted from the board, because we're noodling. But the line check, Jeff's just literally going to take his mic, and we're all going to listen and look at Jeff. And he's going to say, okay, give electric guitar, play. And so I'm just going to play a little bit, and he's just going to make sure that he's got enough gain, enough signal coming to the board, and that there is signal coming to the board. And he's going to make any changes if he needs to, and he's going to call out every channel that he needs to do. Now, ideally, we're using the same scene every week. We're not having huge adjustments to make. So after we do this a couple of times and everything's kind of set, this should go really fast. It shouldn't take us a long time to do, because for the most part, we're all playing the same instruments, the same gear each week. So there shouldn't be a huge amount of changes that he'll need to make during that time. So that's a line check. We'll get to the last one. Jeff will say, okay, that's good. Let's do a monitor check really quick. And again, once we do this a couple times, and using the same scene and saving the changes that we make, then we won't need to make a bunch of adjustments, hopefully, after all of it kind of gets set to start with. The monitor check, we can adjust it and do it in a different way, but this is how I think I'd like for us to do it. And David, feel free to say no, we're going to do it this way. Again, Jeff, I think we'll go through every channel starting like with kick. That's normally the first channel on the board. And so the drummer is just going to start kicking the bass drum constantly, and they're not going to stop until Jeff tells them to stop. But each band member is going to either point up or point down. And Jeff can go through and increase or decrease. When he's changing your monitor and it's where you want it, just put your hand down. If it needs to go down, then just point down. And when it's good, you just kind of like put your hands in your pocket or something. Don't point. And we'll go through, again, every channel, just making that adjustment. And you'll be listening and making sure your monitors are getting set up. And that'll really help us. What will probably happen is it'll take us a little bit to get used to doing that. But we should, week after week, be pretty set and not have to make a bunch of adjustments every week. So setting up these things will take a little bit of time to get started, but once we're there, should be pretty good. Jeff, what will be important in doing that is just consistency at the board, that we're not having to make huge changes every week. That's our monitor check through there. Now, that is talking about stage monitors for the sanctuary. With here, we actually have in-ears in this room. I have a headphone on. These are my in-ears. It feels the same to me. So it's basically just headphones, and each of these boxes right here, we can individually change whatever channel we hear. So in here, we won't need to do monitor checks, but you can adjust as we're going through our songs. Probably we'll need to do the monitor check, run a song, and then there's probably going to be some adjustments after that first song, because once everybody starts playing at the same time. And I'll mention the monitor check. We don't need to be super, super loud. You really just kind of want it where you can hear what's important to you. If you have to have everything in the monitor as loud as it can go, it's going to be really hard for Jeff to get a good mix in front of the stage. Because that's another important point to make. The trust thing that I was talking about earlier, I cannot hear what you guys are hearing right now. I'm hearing echoes of myself off the walls. So it's really not right for me to look at Jeff and say, Jeff, can you turn me up a little bit? Because it might be perfect and I can't hear it. So the trust thing that is between the stage there is that they're going to do a really good job at what they're responsible for. And we're going to try to do a really good job at what we're responsible for and work together there. Let's see. We talked about no noodling. David does a good job about talking through our transitions and how we're going to get from song to song. And then just try to focus as best as we can. It's really easy for a song to end, and then we start talking to the person next to us, and then the worship leader's ready for us to start the next song, but there's 3 conversations going on. So just try to stay focused as best as we can during that time. All right, let's go to the next one. So during worship time, this one is pretty much what we're all pretty used to. Focus on the worship. We're definitely going to be looking at charts sometimes, and that's okay. But let's not forget about the words we're singing to, and just execute what we practiced, what we prepared for and planned for and practiced. And I want to talk about confidence for a minute. Not that everyone in here is not confident, but being confident, not being cocky and not being arrogant. No one wants to be cocky and arrogant, but we're going to make mistakes. And when you kind of just make that mistake and keep going confidently, it's a lot less noticeable and less distracting. If I made a mistake leading on acoustic and then just stopped playing because I got embarrassed, it would be way more embarrassing to stop playing than to just make the mistake and keep going. And then also being ready for spontaneity. We're not a super spontaneous church, but we should lead with our eyes up. If I am playing and David's leading and I'm just looking at my board the whole time or looking at my hands and not paying attention, and David's trying to get everybody to do the chorus again or that kind of thing, and I'm not leading with my eyes up and looking around, especially near transitional times or the end of the song, then I'm going to miss it, and I'm not going to be able to make it help it go smooth, or I'm not going to be a part of it. So just pay attention to the worship leader, pay attention to what's going on around us so that we can be a part of the spontaneity. Not that it happens a ton, but mainly for us, what that looks like is let's end by singing the chorus or the bridge again, just your voices, listening to vocal cues, that kind of thing. And then my very last thing that I'll close with is just a thank you. I've been leading, I guess it's the beginning of 2018 with the students, but coming here since late 2016. And so many people serve here in such a good way that I don't even know why I'm almost crying right now. It's silly. But just thank you for doing it faithfully. And this one will make me cry, like seeing students. This is terrible. I don't like doing this in front of people. Seeing students go through middle school and high school and graduate and then go serve in other places is really cool. And y'all all serve really faithfully. And just thank you. That's all. Thanks.